Well, I forgot the water again, but I did go to take it now because it's a bit late. I want to start and we begin our live now. So, welcome back, fellow listener. We are here again for another. Whoa. This camera is too low for me. So, we are here today for another 2 chapter of Artifact of Evil, the second novel, the second book of the Greyhawk Adventure series, and the second book of the Guard, the Rogue series. The first series of book ever written by Gygax for Greyhawk, the first setting ever created for Dungeons and Dragons. Then after that introduction we can continue. I didn't remember well the last time, but we read chapter 7 and 8 and we follow our heroes while they find the ruins in the Sioux Forest. The ruins where is the Artifact of Evil itself, the second part. And we encounter 2 of our enemies. The evil use the old and the Klavdra, the Drow priestess of Grazd, traitor of Lolt. Then we continue from chapter 9 and then chapter 10, where we turn back. Good lord. Okay, so chapter 9. Guard muttered an obscenity as a loose rock bruised and abraded his fingers. This is no way to thread the hands of a skilled artist. He continued as the Erdre gave him a quizzical look. It was nearly noon and the sun was hot. Guard for one was tired, but the work had to go on. They had discovered the signs of the disturbance, the recent disturbance of a 3-tier structure. This building stood on a low mound in about the center of the peninsula, so overgrown that from any distance it appeared to be nothing more than a small hill. Up close it was revealed as a large building, probably a temple of some sort. Part of the building's north face had been collapsed by the intruders. We then used a few small plants and much dead brush to hide the fact from casual observation. Of course, Guard and his group had easily noted the tampering once they were close enough to realize the building was there. Now all save the party's entries were working to clear away the landslide to find what lay beyond. The Erdre and I could see levered out a large stone block, allowing gravity to clear it once it was free of the rubble. It rolled and bumped down the hillside, landing amidst the other debris they had sent the same way. Moon gave a shout, for although a shower of smaller rocks and bits of broken stone had cascaded into the place the squared-off block had been, a small opening was visible beyond. They had uncovered the entrance to the place at last. "Don't stand and gape, Guard," shouted Deirdre. "Lend a hand here, and we'll soon find what's within." Matching her enthusiastic urging with action, the girl began to clear rubble away from the small opening with gusto. The head-sized chunks of building stone fairly flew behind her in a stream as she grabbed and pitched them between her legs. Guard and I could see joined in, and after about a quarter hour, they were replaced by Moon, Patrick, and Blanc. Then the task was taken up by the 3 novice druids, Grover, Lorman, and Ash. Sorry, I have to do a thing. The whole operation was supervised by Curly Greenleaf's watchful eye, watching and amid jibes about laziness and letting others do the real work. Recalling the cairn and the Cataboline demon, Curly simply ignored all comments and demanded that the opening be large enough for at least 2 persons to pass through easily, with no danger of further blockage from rubble above. The third shift finished the task, and the guards were called in. Soon Gallor, Jokotai, and Oscar were gathered with the others, and the adventurers devised the plan. Sorry, I forgot the thing, and I go soon. Good lord. Whoa, okay. Good. Then. What the? Okay, good. Nothing of interest. Then, the half-elven druid cast an illusion over the place so that it appeared to be a thick stand of trees. Unless they actually entered, the observers would see nothing else, for the Diomer hid the torn vegetation and the jumble of material they had cleared from the temple's entrance. Curly Greenleaf, Gallor, and Garl will precede the rest into the building, for all three had the ability to see in the blackness of the place without benefit of light. Blanc, Chocotai, and the three aspirants will remain behind to guard the entrance and watch for possible enemies. Oscar, Deirdre, and Concy will follow with Patrick and Moon, bearing lanterns to illuminate their way. After giving the three advanced members of the group sufficient time to get well ahead of them, if the scouting group discovered any trouble, they will send word back immediately, and whatever action was called for could then be taken. To assure easy communication with the rear guard, the three aspiring druids will be strung out in a line after the center group, each within calling distance of the next, so that the information could be passed quickly in a hushed voice 100 feet to or from the entrance, if the need arose. The advance party saw signs of disturbance in the corridor. A large group had passed through the entry and into the building not many days before. Gallor didn't like this at all, nor did Curly, but there was nothing to do but press on and learn what this prior entrance had done. It's pretty dark, I know, but it's cloudy, so... The place was a maze, but Gallor, with his strange enchanted eye in a place, was able to follow the path of the preceding group without difficulty, noting where they had backtracked and thus enabling his group to avoid the unnecessary detours. As planned, the three left signs on the wall whenever they reached the place where two or more choices were possible. God used his magical dagger to chisel the guide marks into the temple stone walls. Eventually they reached the sword chamber in the center of the second tier of the structure, a place that could be entered only by means of a secret stair leading down from the partially collapsed upper level of the temple. The chamber was scarred by fire and lightning. Its contents were strewn in a litter of broken and burned parts, and several corpses made the air foul. "There is no magic here," exclaimed Gallor, "yet there remains a powerful and dark aura surrounding the great center block," he said, pointing at what was undoubtedly an altar stone. The three moved to inspect the object closely. Before they had completed their work, the yellow glow of flaming lanterns filled the chamber as Deirdre, Oscar, and the others in the center group joined them. The light made the examination much easier for Gore. They were able to determine that something supernatural had been here and had been destroyed. The outline of some monstrous creatures was etched on the stone floor in 3 places, indicating that at least the number of the things had been destroyed by those who had entered before. "Guardians' diamonds," Gallor commented under his breath as he observed the 3 smirches. "Here, look at these bodies," Gore called. He pointed to the remains of creatures of more usual sort. 4 dead humans, charred by fire but discernible as men nonetheless. There were also 2 other humans, one disemboweled, the other dismembered. There were broken weapons and some other equipment scattered about also. "No telling what they were," commented Greenleaf, peering at the remains. "From the look of it, they served no master and were probably nothing other than free adventurers or mercenaries." "I think not, my friend," called Gallor. The bard had been searching the edges and corners of the chamber, and he stepped back into the pool of light shed by the lanterns with several objects in his hand. "Look here, this is certainly a magic arrow of elven sort, and this bow is likewise one of elvish manufacture. Now this," he added, placing a hammer among the rest. "This is unquestionably made for and sized to dwarven hands." I can't say positively, but I believe that there are signs of a gnome's presence as well. What does this mean to you? Strange weapons for a band of mercenaries, noted Deirdre. Exactly, Gellert said, nodding. Not to mention that their wielders were probably demi-humans. Still, these are the only traces that the invaders of this ancient temple were other than human adventurers. I thought that work blocking the entrance showed unusual skill. I follow your line of reasoning, Gallor, Curly said, looking from the assortment of evidence to the surrounding litter. Oscar, see what you can discover about what price those demons worded while I find if there is more to support our one-eyed detective's deductions. While those two were going about their respective tasks, the others assisted Gallor in minutely searching the whole place once again, being careful to avoid getting in the druid's way. Eventually the wall was done. The magic user could discover little more than what Gallor had already found. Something powerful had been here, and a bit of its aura remained intermixed with the malign essence of the altar stone. All concluded that the object protected by this place and its guardian demons had probably been the portion of the artifact that they sought. Greenleaf had found an ancient pitted silver coin, wedge-shaped, bearing a T on one side and a reversed pyramid on the other. It was partially lodged within a crack near the stairway leading up, and its supposed age bore shiny marks showing recent abrasion. There was only one probable answer. The intruders had consisted of a mixed group of humans, elves, dwarves, and possibly gnomes as well. They had managed to destroy the guardians of the temple, sack the place, and make off with the portion of the artifact and other loot as well. In the process, this group had been careful both to make discovery of their work difficult to uncover and to take precautions to mislead anyone who did find that they had been to the ruin, disguising their expedition to appear to have been a party of humans, bandits, or looting adventurers. This seems very bad, Gellert said. They are days, perhaps weeks, gone, and we have no idea who they are or where they went. Not weeks, Gellert, that I can assure you, replied the druid, unless I am totally inept. They were here only days ahead of us, and after their battle with those demons, I'd guess they traveled slowly for a few days. There are ways to find the route they took and what direction they are heading. Risky under the circumstances, but we must take the chance. The fate of all Earth hangs in the balance, I fear. Yes, agreed Oscar. Whoever was here before us served the cause of evil, that is certain. But perhaps they are not as attuned to the oneness of the cause as we think. Gallor slapped his palm. Of course, excellent thinking, mage. If these fellows had been agents of the Scarlet Brotherhood, surely they would have had some means of placating those guardian demons, leaving them intact to surprise others, and they could carry off the artifact's part without conflict. Come on, let's leave this stinking death chamber and return to the sunlight. There's much work to be done. The eight departed in a group, hurrying to clear the ruin and begin their preparation to discover what they could about those who had taken the object of their quest. What they discovered first was the dead body of Lorman, sprawled face down in the corridor, killed by a single sword thrust from behind. 40 or 50 feet nearer the entrance they discovered Ash, his throat cut. Grover likewise had been murdered where he had stood between Ash and the doorway. Of Blanc and Jokotai there was no sign. There, called Ainconsi as they emerged from the ruin and swept the surrounding area with their gaze. In the bush, to the right! See the foot? No question. A booted foot protruded from a small clump of brush down the sloping hillside. Hurrying there, they discovered the motionless, mutilated body of the Chakik nomad. There were wounds on both his back and front, and nearby were signs of a melee. Jokotai apparently had been attacked from behind, survived the initial assault, and fought with his assailant for several minutes before being slain. He was a tough one, Jokotai, observed Gord. The one who slew him had already half killed him with a stroke in the back. Only Blanc remains unaccounted for, and I think we all know why, said Deirdre, pale-faced but with irony in her voice. The bard and the druid conferred for a moment, then began a rapid search of the surrounding area. Soon Gellor came up with a tattered roll of parchment, and showed it to Carly Greenleaf and the others in turn. "Here is what I surmise happened," Gellor said. "Jogotai was tricked into coming outside, and then he was attacked by the vile chameleon Blanc, who had used this scroll to cast a spell of silence upon himself. The blow was insufficient to kill so doughty a barbarian as the Chakik, but he was sorely wounded before he had the chance to fight. Still, he got in his strokes. See the stains upon his stalwart? Blanc, still humoured to be able to move with no sound, then picked off the 3 unsuspecting sentinels. What was his purpose for all this? Now my reasoning becomes nearly pure conjecture, but see if this does not follow," Gellor said. "If we had discovered the next piece of the tripartite artifact, Blanc planned to somehow wrest it from us. The means had to be magical, not based on strength and weapon play, for one against 8 is impossible odds, especially given our arts and skills. Blanc's masters, certainly the Scarlet Brotherhood, must have supplied him with a wherewithal, a scroll containing a time cessation spell, perhaps to be followed up with some means of sealing us into the treasure chamber, permanently or at least long enough for that fool bastard to make good his escape. I suppose that Blanc crept soundlessly after us once he had killed the druids, but, involved as we all were with our examination of the place, none noticed him. It's likely, after all, that this one was cloaked by invisibility as well. Once he was with us, he must have overheard all we discussed, stolen back, and even now rides with all of our states to inform his associates of what has happened." As the grizzled bard spoke the last word, the rest suddenly talked of the horses. As Gellor had guessed, all of the animals were gone. Neither man nor mount was in sight, so the assassin had a solid head start, and with the party afoot, Blanc was not likely to be caught. "What now?" asked Gard and Deirdre in near unison. Sorry, a second. "What else than that which we were planning anyway?" Greenleaf stated flatly. "Oscar, now you must employ your arts to determine the direction taken by those who preceded us and gained the object of our quest. Tough as stake my life it wasn't toward the Pomarch, or any other rendezvous with minions of the Scarlet Sign." Oscar nodded and withdrew, Deirdre accompanying him, for the dangerous business of casting a divination that involved beings not of this plane. All the others save the druid and Gellor were given sectors to watch, so that while the Dumer crafting was taking place, no enemy could approach undetected. Curly Greenleaf and his old friend, likewise schooled in the arts of nature and its associate power, will seek to become one with the surrounding land, to learn who had passed, who approached, what lurked hidden from normal view. Before an hour had passed, Gellor's low whistle alerted the 4 sentries to return to the cleared area where the others had been at work. "We learn, Curly and I," said Gellor, "that a group of bipeds were here some days back and went many miles to the northwest. The murderous Blanc and our horses crosses the Jewel to the south of us, reached the other bank safely, and are now some 5 miles away distant with many others there. Even now this multitude comes toward us, although the river stands between. There is a deep cover north of here, a place carved by nature, and within it layers an ancient green dragon of monstrous size and greatest evil. As Greenleaf discovered this, we both sensed it stir and rouse itself. We fear that it has been contacted and urged into action somehow, probably by those who came against us." Here the one-eyed adventurer paused and looked at Curly, Is there more, old friend, or did I relate it all? You say it all truly and exactly, as a bird should, that the druid answered. Then he turned to Oscar inquiring, And you, spellcaster of Hardby? Our query speeds northward, the mage began. After leaving the Zeus for open lands in Selene, there seems to be some dissension in their midst, for they make first northwest, as if heading for Anstad. Incredible as that may seem, then north, and northeast for the Crown Hills or Welkwood. They do indeed have the portion of the artifact, though it is evilly protected and hidden. More about them, their master, of their ultimate destination, I could not learn. Well done, said Curly. We know that they have the prize, are not yet at the boundary of Selene, and the general direction of their flight. It is heartening indeed, and all we could expect. Thanks, boon companion and artful mage. Oscar, always somewhat shy, simply lowered his gaze a bit and shrugged as the other smiled and congratulated him. Gallor interrupted the scene after a few seconds. Save this for another time, comrades, he said. We are in dire jeopardy. A dragon comes, and no foes seek our lives. Let us set our minds in the perils of our mission and save the accolades for the time of final success. Correct as usual, nodded Curly Greenleaf. Here, stand round me a moment. I must needs touch each of you. He began an almost inaudibly chant, gesturing and occasionally bringing forth some bit of leaf or berry, then bits of wood. About halfway through the incantation, the druid began touching each of his associates in turn on the forehead, the hand, and the stomach. Gord had never been so included in drummer crafting, and he was slightly uneasy, perhaps a bit frightened by the determined not to allow the others to see this, just as he always carefully masked all of his emotions. Whatever was to come, he knew it was meant to help, not harm, him and the others. It had better be something powerful, Gord thought, for otherwise there might be no future for any of them, not just Jokotai, Ash, Grover, and poor little Lorman. The half-elven priest of nature had completed his touching and was walking away from them. His chant rose to a shout, and as he uttered the cry, Greenleaf threw his hands wide, sweeping them above his head in a near magnificent gesture. The area darkened for a split second, then grew terribly bright, just as the resounding clap of thunder nearly broke Gord's eardrums and left him reeling. Blinking and trying to shake the ringing from his ears, the young thief saw something totally unexpected. The clearing was now occupied by a pair of huge, fiery horses. These stony, flame-coated steeds, with molten hooves and nostrils that showered burning sparks, were hitched to a large, clumsy-looking chariot likewise fashioned of living fire. With a bound, the druid was upon the vehicle, gesturing and calling to the others. Don't stand there, gawking, friends. Enemies abound, and this will draw them faster than before. Hurry! Jump aboard and let us be away with all haste. Gallo, Oscar, and even Deirdre complied instantly. The rest, including Gord, hung back. All could feel the heat, see the licking tongues of flame eating the surrounding vegetation, even though it was green and moist. How those on the flaming chariot survived was unknown to them, but surely the fire would consume them if they were so stupid as to climb into that inferno. Then Deirdre stepped down, grabbed Gord by his hand, and led the reluctant thief aboard the vehicle. Why did that? The other three follow. Inconceived first, then Moon, followed by Patrick. Even before the lusty worthy's feet were firmly aboard the chariot, Curly Greenleaf shouted words in some strange language. In response, the blazing horses pawed the ground, shot forth blasts of fire, and leaped ahead and upward. In seconds, the whole group was borne into the air, the chariot trailing smoke and flames in its wake. The druid somehow managed to guide the horses without benefits of reins or whip. They pulled the incandescent chariot ever upward and toward the northwest. God found he could grasp the red glowing, flame-covered sides of the vehicle without pain or damage from the strange and wondrous fire it was composed of. Gallor saw his wonderment, and told the young adventurer in a shout that carried over the wind of their passage that had not Greenleaf enabled this, God would even now be cinders and trailing ash. Then there was no more time for idle talk. For the druid commanded that all keep an eye out for possible attack. The chariot was traveling at a speed the fastest of falcons would be hard-pressed to match. But magic was magic, and God obeyed the instruction to be on guard. He surveyed the land below, its features slowly growing smaller as the vehicle was drawn ever higher by the burning stallions. The jewel appeared to be a narrow silvery ribbon only inches wide, while the swamp and trees were merely bumpy colored. Hill and cliff were discernible only by light and shadow patterns, Gord noted. Depths were impossible to judge from a height such as this. He was exhilarated by the whole experience, and had there been no impending threat of attack, he would have thought this whole episode one of the grandest moments of his entire life. "There!" shouted Patrick, his voice nearly carried away by the howling rush of their passage. "Below it to the right a bit!" Something dark wings upward toward us!" Curly Greenleaf peered in the direction the frightened mercenary pointed. Sure enough, there was a great winged thing coming their way, a creature nearly invisible against the mottled greens of the landscape below. He said between the tearing gusts of wind, "That's the biggest god's damned greenie I've ever seen, an ancient mossback. Look, its wings spread must be 8 or 90 feet. It is rising fast too." "Ah yeah," shouted Gallon in reply. "Turn these flaming birds around and let's get away from that monstrous blaster. Big and fast as he may be, no dragon alive can keep up with this chariot." The druid complied, calling in his strange tongue to the burning earths. They obeyed instantly, curving leftward and climbing ever higher in a direction opposite to that of the dragon. Wait, see there!" cried Oscar. Ahead was a spiraling flock of winged specks, accompanied by some horse-like shapes. This group was arising from the eastern side of the Jewel River, winging upward and in the same direction the flaming chariot was heading. They were caught between the largest of dragons and the horde of unknown foes. Greenleaf urged the steeds again, and they turned so that they tore through the air in a course nearly due west, no longer climbing but moving straight ahead more than 1,000 feet above the ground. This left the swarming specks out of the chase, it seemed, but the green dragon had other ideas. Its huge wings bore it up with amazing speed, and it was flying so as to cut the distance between itself and the intended prey, coming upward on a steep, sharp angle. The chariot drew ahead, but the dragon rose higher than the vehicle and kept on climbing. Gord saw that the monster was angling now to be on a beeline behind them. "The smart old bastard's going to dive!" screamed Galler. "Beware!" Sure enough, the colossus was hundreds of feet above them now. Its wings were angled, its head a streamlined shaft of destruction. It swooped down and ahead, falling as an avalanche toward the chariot and its straining steeds. Worse still, it was now also apparent that some creature, a man in all probability, sat astride the verdigris-hued scales of the great worm. The Dragon Knight. It was likewise Galler who detected another terrible fact. "Save your lesser spells," the bard trumpeted in his best Centaurian voice, so that all could hear. "I see the glow of a magical sphere surrounding both dragon and rider. If you have nothing else to do now, pray." Gord didn't notice what the others were doing, but he had pulled forth his sling and loaded one of his few oblong shots of lead and silver into the pouch. Even as Galler was crying his warning and advice, the young thief was leaning so as to be able to whirl the tongued bullet faster and faster above his head. The titanic green dragon was closing, and its rider seemed to be readying some attack of his own, but this did not stop Gord. If he was about to die, then he would certainly go with as furious a resistance as circumstances allowed. Nevermore would there be one to cringe or despair. With a final effort, Gord spun the sling to blurring speed and released the heavy enchanted missile. It sped straight and true toward his target. What effect it had, Gord did not wait to learn, for he was already setting the second and last of his magic bullets into the sling. As he cast the second bullet, the grandfather of green dragons was a mere 100 yards away and coming fast. Mouth wide in a hissing scream, huge four talons outspread, it was evident that it was going to plummet upon the vehicle of flame, fire or not, and physically attack its occupants. The force of the impact, tons of dragon traveling faster than any horse could run, will shatter even so magical a carriage as this. One of the spell workers threw up a brief, blazing curtain of fire between chariot and dragon, but the monster and its rider plunged through without seeming injury. Then the moment of truth came. The hurtling body of the scaled monster rushed past the furious chariot, missing a collision by only a few spawns. The wind of its passage nearly toppled Gord from the precarious position he had taken up to sling missiles at the enemy. The dragon was far below them in an instant, spreading its great wings and getting ready to come upward again in an arc. "What happened?" shouted Gord over the roaring of their flight. "Your last bullet took that fellow full on the head," Greenleaf called back merrily. "I saw it all as if in slow motion. His helm saved him, but the impact set him reeling, and he must have jerked back on his reins. You have saved us!" Sure enough, the dragon and its rider were too far behind now to ever catch the flying chariot. Gord silently thanked whatever had guided that second shot and allowed that little tug that sent the dragon just a few feet off target. Gellor gave him a nod of approval, and the Anconsi slapped him on the back. Ahead were the first signs of the elven community of Anstad, and soon they will be safely on the ground. As they clambered down and the vehicle and strange steeds sputtered and vanished in a fizzling poof, Deirdre came up to Gord, grasped him by his lean shoulders, and planted a kiss full on his mouth. "How are you, my life?" she said to the startled young thief. Then she spun on her heel and strode off to join the others. Gord strolled along, trailing behind his hurrying companions as they made for the torchlit gates of the capital of Selene. All this was a strange business, and he needed a bit of time to ponder events and settle his mind. End of chapter 9. And then chapter 10, finally a short one. We make a brief pause and then we continue. I have to settle a little things on my computer. Nothing to worry about, but I have to do this. So wait a second. Okay, good one. Okay. Good. Well, let's continue and end for today with chapter 10. A handful of yokels were pleading for their lives amid the smoking ruins of the Thorpe. As much to their own amazement as to that of the members of his company, Obmi signaled that the survivors were to be given quarter. One of the men either didn't see the signal or else he simply chose to ignore it. Sneering, he thrust his sword into a little girl. That was a mistake. A heavy hammer suddenly flashed through the air, and it struck the man's head with a sound reminiscent of a ripe melon hitting a stone floor. Shards of skull and bits of brain flew away with the hammer as the headless body flopped and jerked on the trampled bloody heart. Obmi cocked the hammer as it returned to him and looked around at the scattered company. All were busily gathering up their booty, sheathing weapons, mounting up and readying for departure. Without comment or sign, the taciturn dwarf leader of the band slung the gory warhammer around the pommel of his saddle and rode out. A small stallion cantered away, leaving the sacked community on the edge of the wildwood behind to the south. An uneven stream of other riders hastened after Obmi. There was no order to their march, but the weaker gave the stronger white birth. Only 2 others rode near the dwarf. Although he was hunted from the Crystal Mist Mountains to Keolan, Obmi was virtually unknown to the rivers who followed him now. Kik and Glade were the only ones in the group who were familiar with the jolly-looking, close-mouthed mountain dwarf, having accompanied Obmi for several years now. Kik was a tall, skinny high elf, fratricidal and murderous, adept with both spell and sword. Glade, an aged-seeming gnome, was likewise a rogue and outlaw, able to spin illusion or slit pearls with equal skill. The lanky elf rode a gaunt horse, while the wizened gnome sat atop his own mount in an auto-like saddle. Kik was still snickering over the fate of the disobedient brigand and trying to get the squinty-eyed gnome to share his mirth. "And did you see his face when the hammer flew near?" Kik paused to cackle with glee at the thought. "It took him full in his sneering mouth, wiping that look away as cleanly as his teeth, face, and head." "Something less permanent might have done as well," was Glade's only comment in reply. The gnome then spoke sharply to his ugly, jug-headed mouth, and the horse responded by increasing its pace to draw alongside the long-maned stallion ridden by the dwarf. Kik likewise brought his animal to a faster gait, drawing up to ride at Obmi's left. "Most noble done, Lord Obmi, most nobly," he said to the ruddy-cheeked leader. "I was just sharing my admiration with the good gnome, but he seems less impressed with our leader's skill and authority than I," he finished, breaking into his usual cackle. "Bah," said Glade, "nobody cares what a crazy elf thinks about whether or not some useless man is brained." Obimi's eyes twinkled as he looked from one to the other of his henchmen. "They need sport," he said, "and they need a lesson too. I give them both. Today there is no doubt who rules this company." As he said the last, Obimi's merry gaze traveled from Kik to Glade. Both understood the message, for elf and gnome had seen the jolly countenance of the dwarf wreathed in smiles as he wrote the most malign deeds upon foes and disobedient friends alike. Obmi had power, and both of his lieutenants feared him. To provoke Obmi was to invite death. "Fetch a red bowman for me, Glade," the dwarf said. "Kik, you move back too. Ride with your ilk. Make sure they remain steadfast." Both of Obmi's henchmen muttered acquiescence and turned their mounts. Red Bowman was the leader of the score of humans who rode with the band, the remnants of a company of brigands that had numbered over 50 when they joined the demi-humans. Although the expedition had taken a heavy toll upon their number, the survivors were wealthy, and there was no grumbling or talk of desertion among them, none apparent anyway. The wizened gnome shrugged and slowed his steed to a walk so that the others would catch up with him. Kik wheeled his gaunt horse around and rode back to where a half-score of various types of elves and half-elves rode together in a bunch. Near them were a handful of dwarves, and gnomes riding ponies. Kik took a position between the two groups and cackled. "Enough sport for you, lads!" "When the hell do we get to some place where we can have some real fun?" retorted one of the wild elves. "Where the hell are we going, anyway?" asked one of the dwarfs. Logging raucously, Kik told both lots that they should engage in anatomically impossible acts, but then he continued. "We'll be coming to our destination soon enough, and then the boss will collect the big money. Your share will make you rich for life." "I should live so long," shouted a single high elf in the company. snorted the lieutenant. "You won't if you keep talking like that. But then, all the more for the rest of us." The group looked blackly at the skinny, cackling elf. But then many of them grinned at the prospect of a larger share of treasure. The half-elf closed his mouth and kept it shut under Kik's wild glare. "Now that's better. I say that tonight we'll be camping outdoors again, but tomorrow we should hit Hill Road and spend the night in Omelette. Good food and drink at the inn there, lads." "We'll take it all, and the woman too," agreed one of the riders. "In a pig's ass you will, Stubbin," replied the stick-thin elf. Ob me want no such business close to Verbobank. We are to pass as sweetly through the border as possible, and that means we act like goody-goodies there. Stubbin, a broad-shouldered mountain dwarf, made a rude gesture at Kik in reply, but did not argue. If Kik said that the boss wanted no trouble, then Stubbin had no desire to cross him. Obmi was one mean dwarf, and nobody to screw around with. Nothing that saw them cared to molest so ugly a group as this company was, and just as predicted, they rode into the village of Omelette at evening the next day. The inn of the Welcome Wench, accustomed to accommodating caravans, easily housed their number. Our group is in Omelette in my D&D campaign. Okay. There were suspicious looks, but no one questioned their money. Horses were fed and rested while the company dined heartily and slept in soft beds. Next morning, Obmi haggled with a pair of traders for provisions and a half dozen fresh horses. Then the company continued northward. They were watched by a hard-eyed man-at-arms serving the local lord, but nobody cared to delay their departure. Obmi was even more silent than usual, and he appeared haggard, as if a night spent in a feather bed was worse for him than one spent rolled in a blanket on the ground. Only the wicked dwarf knew the true cause of his condition. As he had slept, the ebon tendrils had stolen into his brain, long slender tentacles as insubstantial as fog yet strong as steel. The tendrils thickened and grew barbs that hurt cruelly, bringing him instantly awake and making him aware of what was happening. Hughes was in contact, and his master was not pleased with Obmi's performance. The dwarf groveled mentally as the rasping voice of the cambion spoke through the tendrils directly to his brain. "Little fool!" Hughes shrieked mentally. "Your stupid meandering and pillaging has left so broad and easy a trail that even idiot puppets can follow. Do you have it?" At this question, Obmi thought of the misshapen object he guarded so carefully. He did so without meaning to, but Hughes instantly cocked the thought. "Good! Now I shall not have to waste a useful tool. You will live for a while yet, Obmi." Quivering in fear and rage, the dwarf sent a mental message in reply, while carefully masking the thoughts that lurked deeper within his mind. "Thank you, Lord of Evil, for your generosity. I am your servant to do with what you will." "Enough!" interrupted Hughes. "I must hurry, for some great cloud is gathering, and in moments this contact will be broken. I cannot see what is around you, but it is dangerous, powerful. God lies near me, but some friendly force as well, I think, for this force is obscure and hidden. Perhaps it is a trap set by those righteous weaklings who seek to oppose me. No matter. Listen carefully and do not fail me. Leave immediately, but do so without commotion. Go to Verbobank, being careful to be open and seemingly carefree. Once well beyond the town, leave an obvious trail to the northeast, doing what you have done previously, robbing, murdering, raping, burning. It must seem that you are on your way to Molag. Understand?" "I understand, Lord," thought Obmi in reply. The wisp within the dwarf's brain sent tingling pressure through Obmi's body. "Excellent, my faithful servant. Do well and your reward will be all you can ask." And suddenly the tendrils were barbed and painful again. "But if you fail, such pain as this will seem a blissful reprieve from the torment you shall suffer. Now stop cringing and attend my final instructions. Leave those clothes who serve you to their fate. Divide when you reach the At River. Send them on toward the lands of the Gygax. But you ride for your life northward. Enter the Vesp, and I will have an army there to greet you. This force will convey you in triumph to me in Doraka. But Lord Hughes, how am I to convince them to? Obmi let the mental question trail off, for the transil were gone from his brain. He could sense that he was alone within his head. Hatred mixed with fear poured from the dwarf's mind, helping him to blank out the headache that the contact had caused. He said aloud, "Damn you, Hughes, for the pig bastard you are. Some day I, Obmi the Wily, shall become ruler of your realm, and you will cringe before me in abject terror at the fate I will bestow upon you." Then, not wasting further effort on his hatred, the dwarf began to lay his plans for accomplishing the orders of the Cambion use. Then, days later, the company turned on the train of pilgrims and merchants they had been accompanying, some as travelers, others purporting to be guards. Treachery and surprise enabled Obmi to succeed with surprising ease, and only 3 of his number were lost in the process. The company was near the crossroads that made the area important. A well-repaired road ran east and west from Furiondi to Veluna City, while another ran southward from Littleberg to Verbobong. The site was perfect, of course. "Take everything of value, Glid, and lead the man toward Divers. At the main fork, take the Willip Road. Your destination is Molag." The gnome stared at Obmi in surprise. "Molag? What business have we with the Gygax?" he asked. "They will receive us happily and pay for our service and information. Am I to be questioned further?" As he posed his question, Obmi placed his hand on his hammer. Glid shook his head, but there was doubt in the gnome's squinting eyes as Obmi went on. "Kik and I will take the useless steed and lay a false trail." Wrong voice. "Kik and I will take the useless steeds and lay a false trail toward the north. You make sure that your trail is well covered by using only the road as long as possible. We lead any pursuit as far as Littleberg, lose ourselves there, and then come cross-country to join you. Let us say Boulder Ford on the Vang River, 50 leagues north of Willip." Glid talked a moment, then nodded. The gnome had mentally pictured the route and arrived at the conclusion that the 2 routes were of about equal length and would conjoin at the fort, just as Obmi had suggested. "An excellent plan, Master Obmi. The loot." Obmi shrugged his massive shoulders, feigning resignation. "For once I have to trust you fully, gnome. I must travel quickly and cleverly to lay the false trail, then be able to disappear. All the goods, even the silver and gold, must go with your group. I am charging you with safekeeping of the spoils until I rejoin the company. Fail me, and I swear I will hunt you down and slay you." At that, Glid grinned, then quickly replaced the look with one of sober acquiescence. "Your orders of me are always faithfully followed by your servant Glid. Never fear, we shall be at the Boulder Ford as commanded. Give us 2 weeks." The dwarf scratched his beard, staring at Glid as he did so, a mixture of doubt and consideration playing across his leathery countenance. Finally he nodded. "Let us say 2.5 weeks, 18 days, so that unexpected delays are covered. If you are not there within the allotted time, I shall seek you out." Obmi concluded with a threatening tone. Sorry, wrong voice. This is Obmi. I didn't understand it. "I shall seek you out." 18 days, master. I will be there." The gnome went off then to gather the company, while Obmi soaked out the skinny Kik. This was almost too easy. Thanks to the greed of the gnome, Obmi talked as he smiled merrily to himself. End of chapter 10. And for today, this is all. I have a lot of work to do, so I salute you rapidly, and then for today is all. Have a nice afternoon, have a nice lunch, have a nice evening, have a nice dinner, have a nice night, have a nice everything else. We continue our book Wednesday, always at lunchtime. Have a nice day. Bia!